What is up, Earthnoids and Spacenoids? I am just a simple Newtype, and in this episode, we're diving into everyone's favorite gun tank pilot, Hayato Kobayashi. I would say it's Ryu Jose, but remember that one time he crashed? Sorry, Ryu, I guess you should have followed Proto and let your friends die. Like many of the children of Side 7, Hayato is a product of war. He too was pushed into fighting at a young age, but he was always fighting his own fight. He was also trying to keep up with Amado, knowing he probably couldn't. After the war, he became a parent, a husband, and a freedom fighter. We will see in many ways how Hayato surpassed Amado. So let's get into this. Hayato came to Side 7 with his family. Remember, none of our heroes grew up on Side 7, as it is less than a year old by the time that the one-year war breaks out. In Gundam Origin, he is shown as a hardworking kid who keeps his head down. Like Frau Bo, when the attack on Side 7 broke out, his family was killed, leaving him orphaned. He ended up joining the White Base crew. In Tomino's novel Gundam Awakening, Hayato is one of the 5 cadets on the Pegasus, along with Ryu Jose, Kai Shiden, Amado Ray, and Sean Crane. Like the anime, this was Amado, Kai, and Hayato's home, but they left to join the military and were brought back to Side 7 due to the attack. Hayato goes from cadet to ensign over the course of the novel. When Char was trying to infiltrate White Base, Ryu handed him a gun and he got a taste for blood. Also in this scene, at least 10 people are shooting at Char and not one person gets a hit. How embarrassing. While heading to Luna 2, they ran into a Papua-class ship resupplying Char. Hayato and Kai piloted the gun tank for the first time and destroyed the Papua-class ship. He continued piloting the gun tank with Ryu Jose. Unfortunately, Ryu meets his fate when he kamikazes, killing himself and him and Crowley. The gun tank was originally a 2-seater, with the gunner's seat located in the head, and the main cockpit with the core block system located in the chest. After the death of Ryu, the gun tank was converted so the main cockpit can operate the gunner controls. Hayato becomes the main gun tank pilot in the anime, though in Origin, Jabjan and others also pilot the gun tank. During his time on Earth, we see him struggle, but he is never shown as someone who is slacking like Kai. He is giving it his all. However, it is clear that Ryu was the better gun tank pilot, and that is definitely getting to him. Before Operation Odessa, the White Base crew fought against a Dodai, along with Zaku's. This is their first experience with the subflight system. All that the Federation created during the one-year war in terms of subflight systems was the light liner and the Corvette booster. Thanks to Hayato's quick thinking, he got into the G-Fighter, and Amado got on top of it, riding it like a subflight system. The Federation's base jabber won't come into existence until the Grips conflict. You could argue that Hayato was the first to MacGyver a subflight system for the Federation. The Battle of Odessa begins. During this time, Hayato pilots the G-Sky Easy. During this skirmish, he helped Amado defeat Ortega of the Black Tri-Stars. Kai leaves White Base and meets the love of his life who can't hold on to a railing if her life depended on it. And it did! While Kai was gone, Hayato piloted the gun cannon. After Odessa, the White Base crew met with General Revel, and Hayato was promoted to corporal, and they were officially enlisted. The White Base crew goes into space. Hayato continues piloting the gun tank in the anime, but if you only watch the 3rd compilation movie, Encounters in Space, the team gets an extra gun cannon, and Hayato pilots that. Hayato's gun tank, or gun cannon, is hit, injuring him. He is rushed to the gravity block on White Base because 10% of the White Base crew is dead or dying. They're running out of space. While healing from his wounds, Hayato does something that Amado could never do. He opens up and is vulnerable to Frau Bo. He tells her how he never feels like he could get on Amado's level. In Yas's version, we get some more emotional weight of Frau Bo. Many make fun of Yas for Hayato, but he does a really good job giving Frau Bo a lot of range, and doesn't just make her a damsel in distress, though he also makes her a damsel in distress. Frau says that Amado is not like us. Frau is also starting to realize that everything she is expecting from Amado is right here in Hayato. The White Base crew makes it to a Baoku. In the novel, anyone has the ability to unlock their new type potential. Amado, Hayato, and Kai have all become new types. While fighting, Hayato is shot down by Char and is ripped down. He is killed in action, and that is where Hayato's journey ends in Tomino's original novel. In the anime, he and Kai breach the outer wall of a Baoku before their mobile suits go down. They were able to eject and regroup with the White Base crew thanks to the help of Amado and his new type powers. Hayato and the remaining White Base crew members survived the one-year war. Post-war, Hayato ended up together with Frau Bo and adopted the war orphans Kika, Katz, and Let's. Universal Century 0082. Alright, let's address the Yas version and the culmination of Hayato's arc in Origin. Amado meets with Hayato, the kids, and Frau Bo in Japan. Most of this side story involves wacky shenanigans from silly Zeon spies following them. These spies happen to be working with Yurigang, but Hayato and Amado have a moment. During this moment, Hayato tells Amado that he plans on marrying Frau and to please not take her away from him. When many point to the flaws in Gundam origin, they point to this moment, and I don't think there's any defending it. Hayato may not be the strongest or the brightest, but his sense of determination puts him in a league above the rest, and this moment strips all that away from him. The moment of vulnerability between Hayato and Frau makes sense, but this is a step back for a man who already has the girl and is starting to build a family. This side story should have remained wacky instead of taking a moment to be serious. This ultimately concludes Hayato's story in Gundam Origin. After the 1-year war, the Newtype Corps created by Revel weren't treated as heroes, but rather feared. So the Federation did what they do best. They tried to bury them. Bright becomes a glorified shuttle pilot, and Amado is forced to live in a mansion disguised as a prison. We also know that this affected Hayato as well, as he wasn't allowed into space, and was placed as director of a war museum so he wouldn't get in the way. But thanks to Zeta Defined, Gundam Pulitzer, and Kai Shiden's report, we learn a little bit about Hayato pre-Grips conflict. Now Kai was also subjected to this persecution, though we don't know exactly what that entailed. It doesn't matter because he figured out what was going on. Kai recognizes that the Federation peacetime efforts is to effectively turn the Earth into a giant corporation, which will lead to a rise in authoritarianism. He quit the military. Before quitting, he tried to get Hayato to see what the Federation was about to become from Kai's perspective, but Hayato believed that if that were the case, it can be fought from within the system. This conversation between Kai and Hayato happened on his wedding day. Kai hopes that one day, his friend will see the Federation how he sees it. This entire conversation comes from Kai Shiden's report and is a direct reference to Heir to the Stars, the first Zeta compilation film, specifically the conversation Hayato and Kai have about Char. Kai trusts his friends to come to terms on his own, and doesn't force it on Hayato. He does it in this moment for the Federation, and he does it in Zeta when Kai wonders if they could trust Char. Kai is a good friend to Hayato. He figures it out, but it takes about a year for Hayato to come to terms with what Kai was getting at. During this time, the Titans were formed. Kai was right all along. That is when Hayato begins working with other Federation members to fight against the Titans. But they do this while working for the Federation and within the system. Everything is decentralized and anonymous. When their operations started, it mainly involved intelligence gathering, and didn't become a full force until they stole mobile suits from the Jaburo nuke incident. UC-0087. Frau is now pregnant and expecting a non-orphan child. Sorry, Kika Cats and Let's, we love you, but you have this kind of sadness to you that's not gonna go away. In the anime and Kai Shiden's report, it is made out as though Hayato is a big piece of a bigger picture when it comes to Kuraba. But in Zeta Define, the writer is more direct and states he created Kuraba, albeit it operates in a decentralized manner. But one thing Hayato does have is a Garuda-class ship. Kuraba eventually teams up with our new hero Camille and Quattro. At this point, Hayato doesn't know Char's Cassable Rim Daikun, but Kai does. Kai gives him a letter that states that he believes that Quattro is actually Char Aznable, and that he finds his false identity despicable, and most likely why Kai never joined Hayato and Kuraba. However, in Zeta Define, he does play a bigger role in Kuraba. While Hayato fights, Frau and the kids had to lay low, but she was also tasked with getting Amado off his lazy butt and back into the game. Her role is more apparent in Zeta Define, but in the anime, Cats does a lot of the motivating. Cats and Amado join Kuraba and the Ayug, while helping the Ayug during their run-ins with the Titans. Hayato feels the urge to slap Camille. He ends up slapping his son instead. Hayato is working with Will Torchica, who helps get things out to the press for Kuraba. Because of her involvement with Hayato and Kuraba, she was able to meet Amado, and depending on what timeline you want to follow, that leads to Amado's offspring. So Hayato is a matchmaker in this universe. Kuraba eventually got the Ayug back into space, but Hayato and Amado continued their fight with the Titans on Earth. It would be cool to see some of this fleshed out in a manga because there is not too much on Kuraba's adventures until Double Zeta. What we do know is that after the Grips conflict, many Kuraba pilots left for space to help the Ayug fight against Neo Zeon. This left Kuraba with little manpower. By this time, the Titans have fallen, and focus is on Hamon's army. Camille's brain broke, and Bright found a new child soldier. But more importantly, Cats died fighting with the Ayug. Hayato learned of his death, but he never had the heart to tell Frau Bo. Hayato always had the will to go on, the perseverance to move forward, but something broke in him that made him hide this from Frau. Perhaps he is afraid that if he tells her the truth, she will have regrets at choosing him as a partner. Based on how time works, Frau definitely had that baby, so he hasn't seen his newborn child either. After 3 wars, our very strong hero cracks. We can see this in the anime when Hayato sees Kat's face on Camille. Even through all this pain and turmoil, Bro can still pilot a giant cargo ship like it's a fighter jet no problem. October 30th, UC 0088. The Dublin colony drop is in full effect. Judo is fighting Rakken Dakarin in his Zaku 3. Rakken attacks while Judo transforms into his mobile suit mode. Hayato comes in with the Dodai Kai to prevent Rakken from killing Judo. However, the Zaku 3 returns fire and takes down the Dodai, killing Hayato. Before death, he says that he could hear Katz's voice. In the novelization of Double Zeta, there is no Dublin arc, but there is an attack on a Titan base after the Dakar attack. During this fight, he learns of Katz's death and kamikazes, taking out Puru 2 and the Psycho Gundam Mark II. Amado watches his comrade die, and he says that Hayato wanted to be where Katz was. The novel makes him more despondent and suicidal. He was buried in Japan close to his family. In High Streamer, Amado attempted to be a spy and snuck into a bar on Sweetwater. During this time, Amado used the name Hayato Kobayashi, UC 0094. Kika decides to write a book detailing the truth about Amado's life. When she hears of this, Frau Bo gives her daughter a letter written from Hayato. The letter recalled that day in Jaburo when the kids stole an Ella car full of bombs. He says, "Man, you kids were seconds away from death. You didn't even know." But in the letter, he attributes Amado's quick thinking. The letter also has Kai Shiden's business card. Kika would contact Kai, which would later lead her on her own journey, which is still going on to this day, all thanks to Hayato. And that will do it for our deep dive into Hayato Kobayashi, a man who is constantly burdened by the question of whether or not he could live up to his peers. There is a little bit of insecurity in there, but ultimately, this is what a healthy rivalry looks like for a man, one who constantly asks if they are living up to their name. In the anime, Hayato shows us he lives up to his name through action. Perhaps Yas could learn a thing or two in that department. Also, Hayato looks like a thumb in Zeta. I have to say it. But what is your opinion on Hayato? Do you think that Yas ruined his characterization? Is he a bigger Chad than Amuro? Do you think he actually looks like a thumb? Let me know in the comments, and let me know which character we should do next. We have already covered Makuve and Judo so far. But that will do it for now, Newtypes. Remember, you should probably tell your wife about your dead kid. Peace.